Hello. Today we'll talk about two architects. We'll begin with Charles Correa. Today is the 1st of September 2023. Let's read a little bit about him. Charles Mark Correa, as you see, born on September 1st, 1930 and died in June 2015, was an Indian architect and urban planner, credited with the creation of modern architecture in post-independent India. He was celebrated for his sensitivity to the needs of the urban poor and for his use of traditional methods and materials. This was the man. Of course, his eyeglasses are reminiscent of other architects who also had peculiar eyeglasses. What can we do? I think architects in general or sometimes have a problem with the eyeglasses. Anyway, he was a good architect, and we'll see his most important works. Starting, in fact, with this one, which is in the back on the left side in this picture, which is quite surprising considering the time when it was built. The Hindustan LB Pavilion by Charles Correa in 1961. So, 62 years ago, he built this, I would say, remarkably, free pavilion, speaking about its form. I mean, if this building was built today, it would be considered, very, still very innovative. But in 1961, to build such a pavilion was, I would say, quite remarkable. Charles Correa, 1961. So he was 31 years old when he built it. Not bad. No, the Mahatma Gandhi Sangrahalaya, Mahatma Gandhi Memorial in Ahmedabad, less adventurous cluster of units or small pavilions than the previous building, but this was, dedicated to Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, so, it couldn't be too flamboyant in its modernism, I would say. But even here, the way he collects the rainwater from the roof in these sculptural and massive concrete water collectors shows, his disposition towards less conventional ways of building. Although the plan itself, composed of many little squares, is not so uncommon. And around that time, there were architects like Hermann Herzberger who worked kind of like this. But on the other hand, Charles Correa, working with bricks and concrete, exposed both of them. I think has a distinctive aesthetics. Sabarmati Ashram, Ahmedabad, India. That's the building, and you see the statue of Mahatma Gandhi. It must be very nice when there is rain and the water collectors would evacuate the water in a manner perhaps reminding one of certain works by Luis Barragan. An architecture built with very simple means and without sophisticated technology or anything, cross ventilation, louvers, ceramic tiles, brick masonry walls. But it shows that with simple means you can build convincingly. This is an interesting citadel, a political building, governmental building. And he has this theme in his work where he creates some kind of a micro-urbanism within the citadel. And you see, that's how it is. And within, the circle delimited by the encircling walls, he has various buildings. And again, the idea of a citadel or enclosed urbanism, I think, could be very productive for our times as well. An island of various functions brought together by the will of the architect and the programmatic requirements of what was to be done, I guess. And this is the model. Not bad. It's actually a city within a city, a small urban unit within a larger one. So as opposed to the endless sprawling of the suburbia, maybe we can reconsider the enclosed urbanism of the Middle Ages, or contemplate in this case the work of Charles Correa. Of course, here there are touches of postmodern aesthetics, but the idea to enclose within a citadel various functions, important functions for the life of the city, like in this case, I mean, this could open up ideas about a different kind of urbanism. Interesting work. If we eliminate, as I call them, the postmodern touches, it is an interesting work, and we are going to see another one kind of similar. Kala Academy, 1970. I hope I have other images, but I'm not sure. The National Crafts Museum, 1975-1990. This, it's possible, had some existing buildings, traditional buildings, and he just incorporated them within a program of refurbishing and maybe adding some new things. But this shows this work that he was very sensitive to the local, tradition, and didn't provoke any violence to it. So we remember the first pavilion that we saw from 1961. You wouldn't expect this kind of work by the author of that work, or vice versa. So it shows the versatility of Charles Correa. R&D facility of Mahindra and Mahindra Ltd, the Research Valley. No pictures. I don't know what this is. I should have translated from Indian if it is anything to be translated. Maybe it's just a name. But now it's some kind of a campus. A lot of brickwork, as you can see, some concrete. Now this one, we are going to see more pictures of this art center in Jaipur, 1986, 1992. Here is just one picture, but we will see more in detail this work because it's very interesting. Now the Life Insurance Corporation of India, this was, I think, was either supposed to be demolished. It's a corporate headquarters, and in 2018, the World Monuments Watch List listed it among other cultural sites at risk from human and natural threats. Maybe the human threats are even more threatening than the natural threats. So these were the works built by him, which were at risk of being demolished. I don't know if they were saved or not. They're office buildings. Essentially, two office towers connected. The British Council in Delhi, 1987, 1992. Interesting, the artwork on the inner facade on a white background of black splashes. Maybe they mean something. They were not done by the architect, by an artist who was invited to do this. But it also shows the openness of the British government to, to have such a building built and adorned artistically in this way. This is an interesting church from the year 2000, St. Peter and St. Paul's Church, Parumala, Tiruvala. I don't know if I pronounce well. but it is a church with, touches of some pagan source in a way, stars and so on the facade. You have the cross, but then you have other signs that do not really belong to Christianity. And then you have courageously displayed birds on the white facade, and it's a heterogeneous and eclectic building in a way. McGovern Institute for Brain Research at Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston, New York, Boston, US, 2000, 2005. It does look like a North American building, but with touches of, I keep using this word in the absence of another word today, touches. I'm not sure is really the best word, but you have here his interventions, like the yellow parts of the walls, which is a little bit surprising in this kind of building and for this kind of function. But what we look at here, could have been built also in India and not in Massachusetts necessarily. But color, even yellow, could add some, visual excitement. Yellow is considered by some the most aggressive color. But in this picture, it's well balanced by large surfaces of white, and we see some, orange in the background towards the street. Glass, glass, and glass again, but inside, lots of walls. A large building, Charles Correa. Now, this is another interesting building built by him in Lisbon, in Portugal, 2007, 2010. Center for the Unknown. What an intriguing name. The Center for the Unknown. And here it is, the Center for the Unknown. The big window is actually belongs to a large amphitheater, and we are going to see it. Actually, I'm not so sure. It works best for an amphitheater because you would probably be tempted to look through the window instead of looking at the speaker and take notes. Anyway, Lisbon, Charles Correa. If he arrived to build in Portugal, which has important architects, and in the United States, which also has important architects, it shows clearly that Charles Correa was very known and very appreciated. again, if you are in this amphitheater, it would be very, very, surprising not to be tempted to look for long periods of time through this window. A giant window, isn't it? Ismael Center in Toronto, Canada. A monolithic structure, maybe too monolithic, some fragmentation here, but all in all, a religious building in modern times. This is not one of my favorite buildings from his oeuvre, because it is a little bit too predictable. But, it's not an incorrect building, no. It's just that it's a little bit, deja vu. Krishna House, this house I always liked. It's a private residence, to an extent fortress-like, but also with elements of modernistic rebellion. It's not bad. The significant surface of the building is underground. Charles Correa has the reputation of being an architect very attentive to, to the climate. We see here also arrows showing, the circulation of the air. He built a tower, an urban tower, which we are going to see, a vertical housing, block of flats, which is very appreciated for this very reason, that he addressed, the elements in a very direct and inspiring way. And this combination between brick and concrete, I think, is very often working for various architects. This is the tower I was mentioning before. I'm not sure I can pronounce the first word. Kanchan Junga Apartments. I tried. This building deserves attention and careful study. This interlocking of the basic units is interesting, and there are some echoes perhaps from Le Corbusier, from l'unité d'habitation, but this is a different kind of building. It reminds me a little bit of a building, a tower, a permanent block of flats built by Bakema in Berlin. So you see on the left, you know, mentioned the elements that influenced the design of the buildings. This is what Le Corbusier did with his Unité d'Habitation. He built four of those, the first one being in Marseille, in France. But if we look at this section and we look at the section in Charles Correa's tower, we see, you know, differences. So here they are compared. Great deal of transparency has been achieved by the use of large opening and terrace garden on every floor because of American training. Yes, he was trained, I think, at Yale. Charles Correa. Correa has rarely been tempted to import Western ideas into India. Like most architects of his generation, he has been influenced by Le Corbusier, but by his response to the Mediterranean sun with his great sculptural decisions, the overhangs, the double heights placed facing the elements. I don't know if the translation is not so good, but it's interesting to compare the two sections, one through the tower by Charles Correa and the one at the bottom section, a cross section of L'Unité d'Habitation by Le Corbusier. This interlocking of units vertically is quite interesting. Now, we already saw a little picture of this Center for the Arts in Jaipur. It's quite good because the design of this cultural center or Center for the Arts come from the city of Jaipur itself, which was based on the 9 squares, each representing 9 planets. And he did the same thing in the planning of this cultural center. You see here the scheme, the plan of this cultural center itself with 9 squares, one dislocated a little bit from, or maybe not so little bit from the others, from the other 8. And there is a symbolism connecting each square to the, to a certain cosmology, which I do not know, but it deserves study and attention and knowledge. This is a little bit unusual for Europe or North America or the so-called developed part of the world to have references to cosmic events, to planets. In other words, to reconnect or to connect the terrestrial with the celestial, something which most of the time we ignore. But if it is true that wisdom came to the world from India or Southeast Asia, then maybe this kind of architecture finds its right place within India. And here we see again the Citadel theme, a fortress like Citadel surrounded by explicit walls that delimiting this complex of buildings from the outside. And within, like in the other building that we saw, the governmental building, various functions happening without the disturbance of cars, traffic, noise, and all the rest. The Jawahar Kala Kendra, Charles Correa uses the Navagraha, the 9 square mandala, based on the mythological offerings of the Hindu Vedic texts to define the enclosure of the museum. The squares correspond to the real and imaginary planets, such that each becomes the symbolic representation of the setting. Externally, the planets appear on the red sandstone facades as symbols inlaid in white marble and granite, while the plan configuration of 9 squares corresponds internally to the mythical qualities associated with each planet. Mars signifies power, so the place of Mars or Mangal Mahal houses the offices of administration. Guru represents knowledge, and so forms the museum library. Venus as the artistic sign encloses the theater complex and so on. At the very center of the universe and imparting to the planets its creative energy, the sun manifests in the stepped tank, a reservoir of knowledge and confluence of meeting and reflection. Uh, Again, this is an architecture that does not reject the spiritual, something not very often done in the West. So maybe we can learn something from India. The journey through the building, the movement through its celestial divisions is marked by a diversity of spatial densities. Individual buildings inside coalesce into a kind of cellular reordering, random accretions of requirements that either lean against the surrounding high walls like architectural parasites or group and regroup in independent formations. Such accretions create their own peculiar definitions of court, suggesting the qualities and scales intrinsic to the functions housed within. The actual experience of the museum, unstructured though it may be, begins to redefine the very act of cultural display. Heritage, as the design conveys, is a matter of accidental encounter and discovery, a process that relies on the natural instincts and inclinations of a person moving through space between the stage set of worlds, past recreated incidents and rituals of art and craft. Such a design conception, suggesting perhaps a multitude of internal variations, questions the very conventions of museum design and presents a physical rethink of the idea. The primordial has become a fecund source of the mythic, says Charles Correa. This is why Picasso and Matisse in their paintings, Stravinsky in his music, and Le Corbusier in his architecture intuitively searched out the primitive. Again, it's about a dialogue between the earth and the sky. And I think there is a suggestion here that if we try to reconnect with the sky, the celestial with the terrestrial, maybe we can arrive at richer architectures to re-spiritualize architecture, but not in a dogmatic way, in a free way that assumes, at least in part, what Frank Lloyd Wright said when he was asked if he believed in God, and he said, I do, but I spell it nature. as we can see, there are echoes from past architecture in the picture, black and white above, and what he created, what he built, or we could say what he recreated. Now, this church is rather interesting. From 1977, Salvacao Church, uh, several pavilions, so it's a dispersed church in a way. Here I see also, some echoes perhaps from Saint-Pierre de Firminy-Vert by Le Corbusier, which was built after he died. But still, the work of Charles Correa has its own personality, and there are differences. So, although it is a church, the freedom with which he, disperse, disperses various functions is not, canonical. So that was it, the presentation about Charles Correa on his birthday, the 1st of September 2023. Thank you.